Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Well, hello and welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. Today, I'm thrilled that someone really special to me, a coach mentor of mine, Marilena Minucci, is here to talk about coaching and what is this thing coaching that everyone seems to be talking about these days, or calling themselves a coach, or integrating different techniques into whatever they are offering or doing. I don't know about you, but my Instagram feed is chock full of personal development and strategies and tips and techniques to live a healthier, more fulfilling life. Well, Marilena Minucci has been a coach for over 25 years. She's created an entire coach training program called Quantum Coaching Method. And she's really about putting your own self-care at the forefront of anything that you're doing, especially during life's most challenging moments. And her wisdom to soul-centered self-care and soulful entrepreneurship has shaped how I coach and how I support my clients. And her impact in my life is a ripple effect, impacting and transforming my clients' lives in positive ways as well. So I really wanted to invite her here onto this episode so that we could talk more about her journey, but also coaching in general and why coaching is beneficial for us as individuals, as humans, but also for our clients and for everyone, really, why it's changing how we relate and how we have conversations with people in our lives. And my journey through coaching has really inspired me to create something that I want to share with you. I've been sharing it on Instagram, but I want to just come right out and invite you to enjoy and participate in my spiritual entrepreneur archetype quiz. This quiz is more than just a fun exercise, although it is really fun, but it is truly a gateway to uncovering your hidden leadership power and aligning your business. If you're a soulful entrepreneur, a spiritual entrepreneur, it's going to help you figure out how to align what you're doing with your true essence, with what makes you strong, your strengths. And after taking the quiz, you'll get your results and a few emails with some tips, a little kit to help you understand more deeply the unique characteristics of your archetype and how you can start to attract more of your ideal clients and maybe work on some of the areas where there's a little bit of weakness, further develop your strengths, and ultimately create a business that fills you with energy, that energizes you, that makes you want to get up day after day after day and feel empowered and feel inspired and really look forward to connecting with the people that you're here on the planet to serve. And if you would like support, accountability, a group, a sangha, a community of other spiritual entrepreneurs, definitely check out my Lightworker Mastermind program. I have designed this mastermind group full of big-hearted humans, full of other spiritual entrepreneurs who are on a lasting path of professional and personal growth. And we are going to combine all of these things: energy alignment, spinal energetics, breath work, all of these self-care routines and practices that we truly need to put at the forefront of our business development, but also really rooted business strategies, plans, sprints challenges to help you keep building your business consistently, courageously, and in the most authentic way that is truly aligned with your essence, with your archetype, and what you want to do and be and create in this world. So, those are a few of my exciting offers and what's going on in my corner of the world. And if you are interested in coaching, definitely check out the Quantum Coaching Certification Program, Quantum Coaching Essentials, and listen to this conversation with Marilena. She is a gift. She is so generous. She has such a big heart, and I can't sing her praises enough. So let's jump in and find all about what coaching is and why would anyone seek it out. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host today, and I'm so excited to be here with one of my coach mentors, Marilena Minucci. Hello, Marilena.
Hello, Miss Harmony. It's so wonderful to be with you today. You're one of my favorite people to have these kind of conversations with.
I know. I'm very excited to jump into this. And I think probably what would be so helpful for the people listening is because you have been in the coaching industry for so many years and even
Yes.
have your own certification program and are just like a super well respected coach who sits on the board of even many organizations that certify coaches internationally. So you are like the go-to woman for coaching in my mind.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But like many people don't really understand what coaching is. And they think, what the heck is coaching? Especially these days, it feels like anyone and everyone can say, I'm a coach and call themselves a coach. And I think it kind of confuses things a little bit around coach is and what they do. So how would you define that? How would you tell people what a coach does?
When I started years ago, I always say I was a coach, and people say, "Where's your whistle?" Because they thought you were like an athletic coach,
Yeah.
And then we were just kind of life coaches, and now there's health and wellness coaches. There's so many different kinds of coaches. There's executive coaches and all of that. The bottom line is coaching is a wonderful helping profession where you kind of partner with a client and you support them to help them achieve what it is they want to achieve. So it's really a very different kind of relationship than maybe other types of things that you may have engaged in to help you. Coaches are not people who necessarily come in as experts. They may have expertise in different areas, but they're not here to tell you what to do. They're here to work with you, collaborate with you, partner with you. It is a partnership, right? And some people still don't know what that is. And so you want to really check with a person who might potentially be your client. What do they know about coaching? What would it be like? That's why a lot of coaches give kind of sample sessions so people get a sense of what that feels like. And
Yeah.
I think for most people, it feels really good to be able to sort of be under their own steam and just have guidance, support, someone to listen to them. That's probably the most important thing you do is listen and
Mhm.
listen deeply,
Yeah.
right? And you're so right. So many people like call themselves coaches, but they may do some coachy things, but they're not necessarily trained in coaching. And a lot of times we're very well meaning, but if the person doesn't really have the skills to know not to give advice, not to fix, not to take over the session with the client, it can be very misleading and not as productive. And so
Yeah.
that's why there's been this whole new movement to certify coaches. It's been around a while, right? To
Yeah.
certify coaches, to train them properly. It's the most amazing kind of communication, I think, at the bottom line that you're going to find, from a person who really listens to you, hears you,
Mhm.
sees you.
Yeah. I think that that's really profound when you're having a conversation with someone and they're seeing you in your wholeness. And that's often what we struggle with the most, I think, is to see ourselves in our own wholeness. And
Yeah.
And so it changes then because we're always like co-regulating and reflecting with each other. And so when, as a client, I show up in a coaching conversation and I'm just kind of stuck in my limitations or stuck in my not good enough or stuck in whatever sort of is going through my head, either consciously or unconsciously. And then I show up in a conversation with someone like you or another coach, and they're holding me in a space of seeing my wholeness and reflecting that back to me, not in a cheerleading kind of way like you can do it, but like just in a really inquisitive way that's helping me connect to my own wholeness. It's a very different kind of conversation than talking to my mom or my best friend,
Right?
who are more going to just be like, well, if it's my mom, she'll be like, "You should get a job at Starbucks."
Yeah, advice giving. Yeah. Why are you putting up with this? First, just do this. This will fix it. Exactly.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
or like my best friend who will be like, "Yeah, that really sucks," or "That's so hard," and they just kinda, like, feed into my victim pattern. And so, as you say, it's a really profound way of having a conversation with someone, and I think that training is really needed. In my experience, training is absolutely required. I think you
Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
learn how to coach someone unless you've invested time, energy, income, and gotten really serious about how to have this kind of conversation.
Absolutely, 100%. Some of the hallmarks you just described are so perfect. The not the giving advice and not cheerleading. We encourage and cheerlead for our clients, but not in the way you're saying. Not that they kind of get down in the dirt with you. You want somebody who's, here's the word we say sometimes, you're kind of like a neutral witness. Yeah,
Mm.
you're all about the client, but you want to be able to just hear whatever it is they have to say in such a way that it doesn't bring up all your stuff, and you're just listening and can hold that person, like you said, in that sacred container in their own space. You don't jump into their space, but you let them do their own work, and you just like a witness to it. And like, most of the time you shouldn't be talking as the coach. It's mostly the client that should be doing the talking, right? And sometimes people in their being well-meaning take over and hijack the sessions with clients.
Yeah, yeah, and the advice giving tendency, you don't really
Yeah.
recognize how strong it is, as, like, a human being
Yeah.
until you're in a situation where you're having a coaching conversation as the coach and you're like, "Okay, I'm not here to give advice."
Yeah. Most of your advice will be probably wrong anyway,
Yeah.
because you really want the person to pull it out from inside of them. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think is the next tiny step you could take? What is the next possibility that you could look at? What is another angle you could see it at? These kind of questions and reflections really help people see things. Like, this is it. You want to shift the perspective so that they get out of themselves and they kind of see it from a different perspective. And then, new possibilities emerge. And that takes practice to really be able to facilitate that, right?
It totally takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, I'm gonna
Yeah.
say.
Yes, yes. But it's important. We're always practicing as coaches to get better and better and listen. We
Mm.
think we're all such great listeners, but we're human too. I laugh because I ask students, like, okay, so what's the most helpful thing somebody did for you when you were kind of in a crisis? Listen to me. What's the least helpful thing? Give advice. And then coaches are humans too. They get back into their family dynamics and they're off giving advice and doing all sorts of things. But I like to think, and I've experienced over time, that I get a little better at it with everybody because it's so important to be a good listener and a productive, active listener.
And there's real skills, like, as you say active listening, I think skills. Okay. So, there
Skills,
are real
lots of skills.
skills and
Yeah.
techniques in helping someone actually hear themselves and, as you say, see things from a different perspective, see themselves more clearly, understand a situation in a different way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it's really about. So when you're stuck, like you said, when I get stuck, when anybody gets stuck, it's like all of a sudden your vision's here. You
Mhm.
don't see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And a helpful conversation, a coaching conversation, can help you get into that space where you're seeing the bigger picture, you're putting things in perspective, and you get out of that stuck feeling and you get into a better part of your brain where you're not in fight or flight, but you're in that
Mhm.
place where, this is where the solutions come from. This is where inspiration comes from. This is where my divine downloads come in.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so this leads me to think of another thing. So often in a yoga practice or in a yoga context, this happens a lot, right? Because you go into your yoga practice, and especially in the Ashtanga kind of method, but it can happen in other methods. But if it's a Mysore style class, we practice in silence
Mhm.
typically. So you're not just like following what someone's saying, you're doing kind of your own practice within, a room, either by yourself or with other people that's being held by a facilitator. And so a lot of people go into this kind of quiet space within themselves and start to have these sort of divine downloads and get really creative and have all these ideas. And it really does kind of this work that you're talking about internally while they're on their yoga mat. But what do you think the benefit is? So I can imagine some listeners saying, well, I do that all by myself. So what do you think the benefit is of actually coming into a coaching relationship conversation with someone who has the skills and the knowledge and the habit of holding that kind of space for you? What would be the difference between just, going out for a walk and being in nature and getting a divine download or seeing things from a different perspective on your own? What's the benefit of having someone else there with you?
Well, I mean, that witness piece is important, but it seems to me that we get the divine download. What happens when you get off the mat? You know, what happens when you go back into your real life in the rest of your life? Not that that's not your real life, but that you get
Yeah.
back around people and the world is pulling at you. And so how do you integrate what you're learning? Like for me, the coaching, why I loved it. Look, I was a counselor when I first started, a mental health counselor. And why I loved coaching was because it was so present, focused, and so action oriented. It helped me like break down, like it's great to have the divine download. Okay, so now how is that going to play out in my life? So to have somebody to really work that through and say, okay, how am I going to integrate it? What small steps am I going to take? What is going to change? What patterns am I so used to that this new information could really be a game changer? It could take me in a whole different direction in my life. But it
Mm.
might involve a little courage or a little bravery to take some small steps or to create boundaries with people in your life or situations in your life. So that way you create space for yourself. You want to create space for yourself to do, the things that you want to do or to stop doing the things you want to do, whatever it is, to make the shifts. Does that feel right?
Yeah, totally. And I think just to add to that, one thing that I think is really powerful too, and you're speaking to it, is I can get all kinds of downloads. Like I should write a book, or I should, I don't know, eat
Yeah.
healthy,
Yeah. Or yeah.
healthier.
What's the name? Unhide, right.
Right.
Thank
Like
you.
I can know all of this stuff, and I can hear those voices in my head, or I can have a spark of inspiration like, "Oh, I need to reach out to this person," or I want to, take my business in this new way, whatever the thing is. But something really powerful happens when you connect with someone and then you speak it into existence and you put like
Mhm.
words behind it, because it goes from kind of being that thing hanging like in the back of your mind or in your unconscious mind, or like that thought that just goes through your mind, and now you're like bringing it into reality. And it's
Yep.
kind of a scary space too, because
Yeah.
then you're kind of committed to it a little bit more, right?
Yeah, and you're committing to yourself ultimately, not to the
Yeah,
coach. I mean, this
exactly.
whole business of coaches help keep you accountable. Well, really, in the beginning, it's like you feel like you're accountable to the coach, but eventually, the goal is you're really ultimately accountable to yourself. So
Yeah.
if you're going to speak it right, and then say, okay, now it's a real thing, it's out there. What am I going to do about it? So I love that. And that's why a lot of times, when we have classes or we have group sessions too, we say, what are you going to commit to? What is your
Yeah.
step that you're going to commit to? We use that word specifically to help it bring the level of importance. And it's so important for people to speak their mind and speak it into being and
Mhm.
then put the energy behind it into taking small steps. That helps get around the scary part, I find. It's the
Yeah.
tiny little steps that we do.
Yeah. And would you say that that's what makes the quantum coaching method unique, or what makes quantum coaching a unique kind of approach?
Well, I created quantum coaching after taking care of both my parents in their last days. And especially more right after with my mom, I was a new coach then, and I just want to do everything to fix her, fix her, fix her, to make it better. And then I finally came to the realization, with the help of my coaches at the time, that it might not get better in the way I defined better, that
Mm.
this was her path. And that my job here wasn't to jump into her space and fix it, fix it, fix it, but to walk alongside her and experience that journey. So that's really when quantum coaching got born. So, in my view, the whole idea of how we do things we expect to have change is to understand, first of all, it's just part of your lifelong journey, right? And so we want to work with the powers and the laws of the universe, right? First of
Yeah.
all,
Yes.
to just decide what is it that we really want. It's got to be an inside out approach. It can't be because somebody else tells you you should be something or not. It has to come from your heart, from desire, from the passion of what you want. So we really help, coaches, and we help our coaches help their clients to get into that space and make those shifts gentle, loving, heart centered, right? To create new neural pathways in the brain to kind of rewrite old patterns that no longer serve us because we get so stuck in that stuff for years just to work more organically to bring about sustainable change. Right. So
Yeah.
that's what I think. It has to be a gentle process. And I'm not saying you're not like, holding yourself accountable, but it doesn't have to be about beating yourself up. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I know many people out there are.
Yeah.
And you can just beat yourself to pieces. But this whole idea of having a little self compassion is a radical for a lot of people, but
Mhm.
it's so critically important. Otherwise, change is never really going to take place on that deep healing level, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I have a interesting example of this that I think you'll appreciate, because in the soul-centered self-care and in the Soul Gardeners part of your coaching program, we were introduced to the self-forgiveness statements from the spiritual psychology department of Santa Monica, I think.
Mhm, mhm.
I forgive myself for judging myself for blah, blah, blah. The truth is blah, blah, blah. Or I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding, whatever that is, the truth is. And I use that all the time in my coaching. I love it. I think it's the most powerful thing. But for me, I was trying to shift a pattern, a habit around drinking too much. Not
Okay.
like
Where are?
excessively all the time, but
Yeah.
just, you kind of like have one and then maybe two, and then, you go to bed and you wake up at 3 in the morning and you're sitting there, what? Like, now I'm not sleeping good. Why
Right.
did I do that again? I know it's social, but just forget about it. And
Yeah.
you're like cycling in this negative self talk at 3 in the morning, which doesn't help anyone. So
Exactly.
I was like, okay, this is not working. This is not a functional pattern to shame myself into a different type of behavior or a different relationship with alcohol. So I'm like, I'm going to do the total opposite. And so
Good.
at 3 in the morning, when I woke up, we were on vacation, we were having a nice time with my family,
Mhm.
it's like a part of the family culture. And yet I'm having this little inner war with myself, right?
Right.
So I wake up at 3 in the morning again. And instead of feeling bad, I just started going through it. I forgive myself for judging myself for drinking too much wine. The truth is, I was with my family and I was trying to have a pleasant time or, whatever my truth was in the moment, because it's always like what it is in the moment.
In the moment, yeah.
And I would just do it over and over and over and over again, this radical self-compassion. And it really shifted it. It totally shifted it for me. It was like all of a sudden I wasn't fighting myself anymore around it, and it shifted the behavior. And then all of a sudden I was like, I actually don't really need to drink to feel okay in this situation. I'm feeling really great and I love myself.
This stuff works.
Yeah.
You have these tools and you just have to remember to use them.
Yeah.
It's like I say, you get a cold and you forget you have echinacea in the medicine chest, right?
Yeah.
You think, oh, wait, I have a tool for that. And you have a tool and you used
Yeah.
it. And how beautiful.
Yeah.
Like that would, if you, to beat yourself up, which
Yeah.
many of us do, and to shame
Mhm.
ourselves goes nowhere. It's like the big black hole that goes down, down, down. There is no coming out of that. The
Yeah.
only way that I have really found that really helps shift behavior is to come from this kind of pathway that you're talking about. It has to be through self-compassion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you marry it with that self-responsibility, taking care
Yeah.
of yourself. And then you find that place, that sweet spot like you found.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually, like, kind of profound, just how quickly also it worked, because I think there's so many things in our lives that we try to, like, white knuckle it or
Yeah,
willpower our way through it, or we try to, like, berate ourselves into behavior change, and like you say, it just doesn't work, and it might work for a time, but it feels like it doesn't stick, and it doesn't shift that neural pathway in you.
right. Exactly. There's a reason, we create some of the ways we've done things in the past. And then we kind of forget sometimes it doesn't serve us and we don't really need to do that anymore. And so this thing about, like you said, white knuckling it, that's such a great expression, that just how like hard we fight to make a change. And then I hear so many people say, like, I can't get this. I can do other things, but I can't get this. What is wrong with me? And then it goes down into this whole negative self-talk that goes just nowhere. There's just no energy in that can raise you up to a new vibration. What you're talking about is, a better approach, a more time tested and research based, I will say, even now,
Mhm.
approach to using self compassion, self forgiveness, to being in a loving relationship with ourselves. That, this is what it's all about. This is why when you come through training with us, the course is for you, to
Yeah.
work with you and yourself. You happen to learn how to coach, but we're more interested in you having the transformation, because how can you help other people if you can't help yourself, And
Yeah.
again, you don't have to do any of it perfectly. It's just about remembering I have the tools. Let me try it, see what happens. It's all a big experiment in a sense.
Yeah, and I like that. It's a lifelong experiment too.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. It's action oriented experimentation. You
Yeah.
try things, they work, great. You try things, it's not for you. It didn't work this time, maybe not in this instance. Okay, maybe that tool's not for you. It's the same thing you do with your clients. You offer them different tools, and some things work and some things don't land so well. And that's okay. It's all normal. We're all just continuing to make small adjustments, just like an airplane does to land where it's got to do it. It's a little to the right, a little to the left. We just make
Mhm.
little nudges and then we get where we're going. And that's kind of to be gentle about it. I don't mean to make it simplistic. It's not at all. And I totally honor the fact that some people can be stuck for years
Mhm.
and be having these patterns, especially of the negative self-talk, for years. And it takes a little while to just get used to shifting that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, when you make those little shifts, you talk a lot and teach a lot about these Kaizen steps and how making the small shifts doesn't irritate like your nervous system. So instead of going into fight or flight mode, when you take too big of steps,
Right.
and I mean, we worked a lot on this with my own like self-care, getting back into my yoga practice. Like if you're like, okay, I'm going to do 2 hours of yoga and you haven't been doing any, you've been sleeping in or, too busy to do yoga. And then you're like, hey, I got to get on my mat and do a 2 hour practice. That's a really big step compared to like, I'm just going to do one sun salutation today.
Exactly. I had a client, exactly that, the same example with the yoga, with the sun salutation. She had this huge step that she wanted to take, and we kept breaking it down until it was so like she could feel it in her body. She was going to do it. You like already know, like if you make the chunk too big, if you're going to do it or not, because we're all kind of tied to the all or nothing. I'm going to do
Yeah.
it, I'm going to do it big, but it's really proven that does not last. That does not work. It's tied to willpower, and that just doesn't last either. So it's the nudge. I think of every time I've been in a yoga class where an instructor has come over and just nudged me a little because my foot was in the wrong place, or this would be a little bit better position. And over time, like I got it. You know what I mean? But it's the small corrections, right?
Yeah.
That gentle approach, I think really works the best to just always break everything down into tiny, tiny little steps. Do you
Yeah.
ever notice when you're really stuck on something like procrastinating, right?
Yeah.
And you just need to find one tiny step. That's what I always ask myself. What's one tiny, tiny, I mean, ridiculously tiny Kaizen step, like you said, that I can do, you know, to make this happen, just to move it, just to move that boulder, just a little nudge.
Yeah.
And before you know it, that boulder's rolling.
I know. I think of
I
you
get
every
so
day,
much
Marilena.
resistance. No, I get so much resistance on this. So many students are like, no, no way. I got to have a giant to-do list. I got to have all these things done. I said, no, trust me. The smaller the steps, the faster you go.
It's
And then
true.
you're right.
I know every day. I'm honestly, you're in my mind and my heart every day because I have my giant to-do list. And then I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, all right, I got to break this into smaller, 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 smaller
yeah,
steps.
yeah.
Open the tab on your browser.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Done.
It's
Okay.
magic. It's just
Yeah.
magical. It's kind of a little secret, but it's really magical.
With those tiny steps, if you're moving forward, just like taking these incrementally, like almost unnoticeable steps. First of all, you're not freaking out because it feels easy. And so you can
Right.
stay in a place where you're not activated. And you end up like when you think of an airplane, I love that analogy, right? You end up in a totally different place
Right.
than if you hadn't done anything.
Yeah, because otherwise you would just stay stuck wondering, when am I ever going to get that impetus to do the whole big project?
Yeah.
You can't write the whole book in one sitting, one chapter at a time, one
Yeah.
sentence at a time, one word at a time.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
we do it.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I've learned from my mentors. Like all of what I teach in my courses are things that I've learned over all these 25, 30 years of doing all this work, that have really, really worked. I love the things that I know that sort of have been tried and true, and those
Mhm.
are the things that I think are the most powerful, and that they can be very simple, but just so powerful.
Yeah. I think often the most powerful things are the most simple things. We just have to
Yeah.
remember to do them.
Exactly. That's it. And that's a habit too. You like to take a moment and say, okay, what do I know? What have I got that could help me with this? Right? It's, oh, yeah, I forgot. I have that, let me try that, And so as a coach, little by little, a coach isn't about what you do, it's about who you are, you
Mm,
know, and it's about how you live your life. It's about how you see things. It's the lens through which you see things, right?
mhm,
So we talk a lot about the coach approach, having a real heart-centered approach to everything, which is really a nice way to live. It's a nice way to live. And it helps you kind of like put yourself in a place where the things that aren't really serving you anymore, it'll make it a little easier to let go of some of those things,
mhm.
or find a way to live with the things that, maybe you can't let go of, or the people you can't quite let go of, but it gives you a different perspective. So you can be more in harmony with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're
Mhm.
finding harmony today, so
That's exactly it. That's what it's all about, honestly.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe you can speak a little bit too, because this is the other thing I think people get a little bit confused with is the difference between coaching and therapy, or coaching and, yeah, going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or, I
Yeah.
mean,
They're 2 completely different types of professions, and they serve in different ways, right? So, before there was coaching, most people went to therapists for all sorts of things, right? And there's definitely issues, mental health issues that counselors and therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists deal with. And then there are sort of more the things that fall more into the lifestyle habits and those kinds of things. Not to say, I mean, coaches talk about everything,
yeah.
but here's the telltale. Like if a client comes to you and can actually create an action step and take action and move forward because they're ready, they're not only willing and able, they're really ready and they go, right? Then that's a person who's a candidate for coaching. If they're stuck in such a way that they're emotionally stuck or there's just some block that they can't really get through, then you're looking at, referring them or having them find a therapist for themselves. It's important because I think a lot of people going into coaching are afraid they're going to cross that line. But again, with good training, you kind of see the line. This is where the line is. This is my scope of practice. It's very clear what I can help people with. And it's not that we don't ever talk about the past, but coaching is very action oriented and it's based in the present moment. We talk about the past in so far that it informs us. What did you learn about that thing that happened to you 10 years ago or that situation? What did you learn from that would help you now? So we pull things, we draw it into the present moment. So you're really in a place where, oh, it's just wonderful. I've had people tell me that when they made the switch to coaching, because they really weren't a candidate for therapy, they were
Mhm.
able to really make a lot of progress very quickly because of the way it's so action oriented.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true, and I think it's really positive too. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know, I just had this experience, so maybe yeah, this is just me projecting, but, like, when I went to the doctor and, I mean, maybe going to a therapist is different than going to the doctor, but it feels kinda similar in my mind. But I left, I was so depressed. I just felt like such a victim, like, going to this expert who, like, really, I don't know, I just felt really disempowered, like I was trying to get them to fix me,
Right.
and even though I didn't really, like, want them to fix me, but it's just, like, the relationship dynamic, I felt really, like, I was like, "Oh."
But there's that line, like, where we learn traditionally that the expert can fix us,
Yeah.
and now the empowering part of coaching is that we learn there's a lot that we can do to help ourselves, not
Mhm.
necessarily fix, we wanna get out of that word, but this idea that, I was just having this conversation with a coach today, went to a doctor, the doctor says, "Okay, well, your cholesterol's high, fix that." And dismiss them and, like, didn't tell them how, didn't tell them what, didn't tell "Fix it or we're gonna put you on medication," or whatever it is,
Right.
and there's always that sort of like, "Okay, next," and you're like, "Well, now what? Now what do I do?" With
Yeah.
health and wellness, with anything, what do I do? It's
Yeah.
like when you
How do
graduate
I do
school.
that thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So coaches are also great distillers of information, especially health and wellness coaches. They
Mhm.
learn stuff all the time. And part of their job can be to educate.
Mhm.
They change hats and they kind of educate. But when they educate, they still have to turn it back over to you to say, hey, so now that I shared this information, is any of that helpful? You'll remain the expert on you. They may be the expert on some other subject, but you remain the expert on you. And how empowering is that
Yeah.
to know it's up to you? Like that I can take steps or not take steps. It's all my choice.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was I think empowering's a good word for it, because I left feeling completely disempowered, not because she was trying to disempower me or anything. It was just
Right.
the nature of the interaction was sorta like, "Yeah, you have an autoimmune disorder, but there's nothing we can do about it, so, good luck." And I
Yeah,
was like,
so
"What?"
so that's an interesting experience that I think so many people have. And when you think there is so much that I could do about it, if I was really told that, but I really got to get over the shock, the, intensity of all that before I can even start to think about, okay, what else could I do? So he asked me, what is a good thing a coach can do? A coach can really help in a situation like that, help you
Yeah.
assess what was said, help you figure out what other resources are possible, and help you hold you to like going to investigate those resources so it doesn't feel hopeless. I had that honestly with a recent client who came to me, and she has an issue, a serious, what will be a debilitating disease. But I said, have you looked at this or this kind of provider? We had that conversation. Now she is off and investigating so
Wow.
many different possible solutions, and she's so empowered, so
Yeah.
excited. All I had to tell her was, why don't we make a binder for all the different things that you're collecting? She was a binder person, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
now she feels empowered. She goes to these appointments. She knows more than a lot of the people she's talking to. And she goes, you're not for me. I'm moving on till I find the right practitioner for me. So I don't have to help her with the issue, but I can help her work through it.
Yeah, I love
You know?
that. It is kind of a perfect example of why coaching is helpful because if you leave that kind of situation, and I mean, it doesn't have to be a doctor, but in this case, it might be. I mean, it could be something else. It could be having trouble in your relationship, but you just
Sure.
feel like I'm alone here. I don't know how to do this thing. I mean, maybe it's even like you want to take a new direction in your business or you want to, do something brand new that you have an idea about.
Well, coaching is about the whole person. So it's about all
Yeah.
the different aspects of your life, career and relationship and your health and your well-being. So you can talk to a coach about anything. And the best coach is going to listen and be able to help you navigate through all that in perspective with everything else that's going on with your life and help you find other resources if you need them.
Mhm,
But a lot of the times people know the answers. They
mhm.
just need someone to listen to them and help
Yeah.
them bring them out so that way they can use those answers or take some steps to just sort of explore what else might be possible for them. It's really, really ultimately kind of about hope, just making
Yeah.
sure that we keep hope alive and we keep focused on what's most important for us, what we're really passionate about. The
Yeah.
world does a good job of dampening that down all the time, and we just need that support.
Yeah, that's such a good point, and relearning how to listen to your inner guide, I think, like, your inner knowing, and if you don't know, like, being with you to help experiment so that you do know. I think that's something that isn't really encouraged so much in our mainstream society, and I think that's really what coaching also brings out of us as humans is like, "Well, what do you know, and what is your guide trying to tell
Totally.
you? Where is it leading you? And, like, let's
Yes.
follow it and see what happens."
You have that inner wisest self, that connection to wisdom, your highest self, whatever you call it. You can tap into that intuition. What a source of amazing information. We always say the body never lies. It knows what's really going on. When you feel things in your body, it's already expressing things way beyond this brain. We have a brain in our
Mhm.
belly, right? We have that
Yeah.
enteric nervous system. Uh, we have so much that it's like a humongous computer we don't tap into, you know?
Yeah.
It's bigger
Yeah.
than Google. But you're so right because who teaches you that in school?
Yeah.
You have a bellyache, oh, take something. Who teaches you that when you're a little kid? Do your parents say, oh, well, what do you think what's going on with that? We have to kind of really relearn that. You're 100% correct. That is so powerful. So this is why a coach is not looking to create a lifelong client. Your
Mhm.
clients might become lifelong because they want to continue working with you on different things,
Mhm.
but your goal is to help people like help themselves, right? So I have clients who come work with me on something. They go live their life, they do their thing. Something else comes up, they want to check in, they check in, and that works out great. They have a source that they can trust and that coach that's there for them, that they know somebody's there for them, but they're really going out there and putting it into practice, what they're learning. And then they do their growing and then they come back when they need support.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful. So, in your experience, what's the most amazing transformation you've seen for someone?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I've seen people heal themselves from disease, or
Wow.
reverse things they didn't think that they could,
Mhm.
right? I've seen women find their voice and
Mm.
be able to stand up for what they really want. And that might have meant, in some cases, new careers. And that might have meant, rediscovering themselves after they became empty nesters. That might have meant severing a relationship that no longer worked after so many years.
Right.
It's really amazing. I find that even just people going through classes with us, some classes you may have experienced it in yours. Everybody's moving all of a sudden, or everybody feels the need for a shift or a change. But the most powerful thing is somebody learning to love themselves.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
To me,
truly.
that's like the meta outcome for me. To say that you really can say you love yourself,
Yeah.
that's huge. So many women, especially, can't do that.
Yeah.
And to be able to be in a position where you can sort of start with, okay, I can tolerate myself, I accept myself, okay, I like this about myself. But then to say that they love themselves, that to me, it's amazing. That's what changes the whole energy and vibration of the planet, I think.
Yeah. I agree full and wholeheartedly. It's profound and definitely a gift that I think was brought into my awareness through the quantum coaching curriculum that I did with you and just your presence as a coach and as a human. It's so,
Thank
so
you.
all unconditionally loving.
Well, and I receive that and I give it back to you double. I love that exchange. I loved having you particularly in class, but you know how these classes are. There is no particular reason, but I trust the universe brings everybody together who's supposed to be together for a reason.
Mhm.
And every human that comes through this program, I find their level of transformation amazing. And when you see people on graduation day, and you look at their faces the first day, they look like completely different people to me.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
I see it and I'm like, wow, wow, wow. And I'm just so blessed to be a part
Yeah.
of whatever it is, you all go out and do. What you go out and
Yeah.
do in the world is amazing. What I see you
Yeah.
do is incredible. I get to sort of experience a piece of that, a little bit
Yeah.
vicariously, but I'm just so thrilled that you got what you needed for you to be more whole as a practitioner
Mm.
and to get through anything in your mind that is a limiting thought or belief and have tools to get through your day to day because that's what we got to
Mm.
just do day to day, right?
Yeah.
And be able to have a vision for what else you want to create in the world and
Yeah.
be able to deliver your gifts to the world without hesitation.
And I think you realize, I mean, for me, you go into maybe a certification program wanting to gain new skills, gain new insights, be able to help people, in a more supportive, productive, more efficient, more effective way. And of course, that's like the motivation for going into, a coaching certification
Sure.
program. But I think you're right. What actually, I mean, you get all of those things for sure, but the really deep transformation comes from the work that you do on yourself in that kind
Yeah.
of program, because
Mhm.
you really can only hold that space as deep as you've gone. And so
100%.
you gotta look at all your own shadow stuff and
Yeah.
be with it and start to
Yes.
transform it, or, at least acknowledge it if you want to be able to go there with other people, right?
100%. The more work you do, the more work you can do, right? So
Mhm.
100% with that. And it still doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be
Yeah,
completely healed or completely perfect. Oh my gosh, that is so not the job description of a coach,
yeah,
right? We
yeah.
want you to be authentic, be yourself. And oh, my clients like to hear once in a while, I slipped up with this, or I'm learning this, or this is what's
Yeah.
my challenge. I share those things, especially with students too, so that they know, we're all just on a journey. You're sort of on the ladder, right? You're
Yeah.
you're helping the person on the rung kind of right behind you. And
Yeah.
you're still climbing the ladder yourself. You become a lifelong learner. And I love this. You get paid to keep learning and sharing with people. It's a good gig. And I love that self care becomes part of your job description. That
Yeah.
they had me at hello and they told me that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I mean, I think a lot of people become yoga teachers for the same reason. You're like,
Yeah.
"What? I have to practice? That's like part of the job description?" So,
Yes.
I think
Why
a lot
not?
of like people in the yoga industry in the yoga field definitely resonate with the coaching too because oh,
Totally.
not only do I get to do yoga, now I get to work on myself. Amazing.
It's amazing because it's such a perfect pairing, actually, if you ask
Yeah.
me. Such a
Yeah.
perfect pairing of the 2, and I think how could it not? How can you not
Mhm.
continue to work on yourself can only enhance your practice, right? Can
Yeah.
only enhance your teaching if you're a teacher,
Big
but
time.
it's all body, mind, spirit. It all has to work together. You gotta cross the bridge somehow. And it's not all about what's happening in your head, like coaching too. Like if you're really a deep coach, you're working on a somatic level, you're
Yeah.
working with the right brain, not just the left brain. You really understand how to tap into those other sources. And how could that not just bring it all together for someone who wants to package these 2 things together for themselves or for clients or,
Yeah.
you know, whoever they want to be of service to?
Yeah, 100%. I think that was a really big thing that I got out of your program in particular, because before I came to quantum coaching, I also did the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which you used to be on I think the faculty for, right?
I
Early
was
on?
faculty for them. Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
still a video or 2 there.
Yeah, a
I
video or
show up
two in
every
there.
now and then. Exactly.
And I mean, that was a really nice program. It was, a little bit more into the nutrition. I mean, it was a good like foundation program, I think.
It's a springboard, right?
Yeah, their
Yeah,
upgrades and their updates, and I did also their coaching practicum, so we did get, some live coaching experience, but really, like, yours is very in-depth with the coaching method and coaching
yeah,
methodology. When I was in your program, because we were working with the coaching methodology and then also all of the teachings that you were doing, and because it's live classes, so it's really like a mentorship
yeah,
almost more than just like a program where you're watching videos. I mean, there's videos too, but it's really like a coaching mentorship more than even like a coaching program because there's so
mhm,
much contact. But I think in the yoga field, and I'd been in the yoga field for 2 decades before getting into coaching. And it was always in my nature, of course. There's something that's drawing me there. But this idea that I think is sometimes in the yoga field, we as teachers, because you're in the teacher role, there is a lot of pressure to show up as perfect
yeah,
or to show up like in a certain
mhm,
light as the one who has the answers, as the one who holds the power in that relationship. And
mhm,
so as you are in that kind of dynamic, you also kind of get a little bit addicted to that power or that showing up in your perfection. And it becomes isolating. And also, I don't know that it's the most effective way to enter into that kind of dynamic or relationship. And especially not these days. I mean, a lot's changed in
yeah,
2 decades, but
yeah,
I feel like with coaching, I mean, I feel like it needs to be mandatory for every yoga teacher to go through a coach certification program because you need to dismantle all of these hierarchies in your mind and show up in your authenticity so that you can really help people and help people effectively within themselves so that you're not just reinforcing some of those old patterns and wounding and reliving this power dynamic of I'm your savior and I can help you and this whole kind of deadly trio.
it's the rescuer again. If you're rescuing or showing up in that space you're just describing. You cannot be coaching. It's like you've got to turn up the volume on the client and turn down the volume on you.
Yeah.
And now I hear what you're saying though, but there's a lot of pressure because you think I have to be perfect. People are looking at me, they want to emulate me. I'm supposed to show them exactly how to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. It's a lot of performance. It's a lot of high intensity performance.
Yeah.
Well, coaching, you want to dispel that right out of the gate. And just like
Yeah.
I'm a human being, just like you, every coach I know who's a good coach has a coach, if not more than one coach. I have coaches. You have coaches. We all
Yep.
have coaches because we believe in it so much. And so you're right. That word dismantle was beautiful because it really helps you as coaches. You learn to dismantle that I have to be perfect. Because
Yeah.
if you're worrying about being perfect, you're not focusing on the other person. You can't be listening to them if the volume is so loud in your head about, oh my God, I'm too heavy, I'm too this is not right, this is color doesn't work for me, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it
I
is.
didn't do that posture like
Yeah,
to the standard that it needed to be to demo it or whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And trust me, I don't think people are thinking all these things that we think they're thinking as much as we do. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just not like that.
And I think something really changes in that dynamic, and this is also part of your training program. We read the TED book and look at, like, the empowerment,
Mhm.
dynamic and this victim savior prosecutor, persecutor, uh,
Persecutor, yeah, yeah. The
dynamic.
victim and the persecutor
Yeah,
and the rescuer, they are
the
just in
rescuer.
love with each other. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think with the coaching, you learn to kinda take yourself out of that dynamic and put yourself in a different place as a coach
Yeah.
rather than
Or
as a rescuer or as a persecutor, but the danger is often, like, your students, when you're a yoga teacher, come into class, and they're looking for that savior or
mhm,
that rescuer, and
mhm.
if you take on that role as a teacher, eventually, and I learned this not just from the book, but also from you and, the conversations we've had, you're gonna become the persecutor for them, and
Yes.
it's a terrible dynamic to get in mixed up in because
Yes.
you're bound to fail, and they're gonna hate you, and then they're gonna leave.
Yes. And then all you do is spin around that triangle and you wanna get to the other triangle where it's a really wholesome, everybody's on an even playing field, right? It's not about perfectionism, it's not about competition. It's just about each person being in their creator self.
Mhm.
You might be a curious coach and ask questions. Wow, I wonder how do you think you could do that posture better? Or I wonder how I could do that posture better. Not beating yourself up and challenging yourself,
Yeah,
stretching the client
yeah.
to do something that they haven't done before. So all of that is so much healthier.
Mm.
And yeah, it's totally completely different dynamic.
Yeah, and I think that really shifted for me and I really started to see it, like, "Oh,
Wow.
what's going on in this industry for the most part is very not healthy from my perspective now, my new perspective, and I want to function in a completely different dynamic, and my students feel it too. They feel it,
Mhm.
and they've
And what's the difference that you notice if they feel you now doing things differently?
I think they just I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure if they completely appreciate it 'cause maybe some of them still wish that I was,
Yeah.
showing up as a perfect savior, but mostly they say, "You're just so normal." I'm like,
Isn't that
"Yeah,
nice? You're
yeah,
normal.
I'm just normal."
Okay. And you know what's really good is that it shifts the responsibility. This is mine responsibility to
Yeah,
teach, and this is your responsibility to learn and practice. And so they're not looking to you to rescue them so that they don't feel disempowered either. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
so much healthier. I'm so glad
yeah,
that you made that big shift and had this aha.
yeah.
And because imagine another 20 years of doing what you were doing.
I don't think I would have been able to be honest. I
Yeah,
really,
you know what that road is? That road is just to burnout. What you were
yeah,
describing is just a road to burnout. So how can we like be empowered all the time? Raises the vibration. It's sort of like that self combustion engine. You know, it just keeps growing and it keeps recycling itself, and the energy just gets better, better and brighter, as
yeah,
opposed to this drain, this constant drain from
yeah.
having to be perfect.
Yeah, and there's something that happens too when you take yourself out of this hierarchy, because
Hmm.
if you have to be better than someone, there's always someone better than you, and there's always someone worse than you, right? And so you're kind of stuck always like climbing this ladder, and that's the thing that really I don't
I'm
like to
exhausted.
do.
Yeah, I'm exhausted listening to that because I did enough of that. I've done enough of
Yeah.
that in corporate America
Yeah.
and in jobs that I've had and school, and I've grown. I've had enough of that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's exactly. It's
I
just
think we all have.
exhausting.
Exactly, and
And
that's what
so
I
when you
say. We
like
need to get to career. Mhm.
yeah, it leads to burnout, and when you're able to see, "Oh, no one's better or worse than anyone, and we're just all working on ourselves and on our own journey, and my journey doesn't have to be your journey." And, we don't
Exactly.
need to compete all the time.
It's the parallel path. You do you, as they say, I
Yeah,
do me.
yeah,
And, for times we walk along the same path. Maybe it diverges, maybe it comes back together.
yeah,
This is just the way it is. And it's a much more peaceful,
yeah,
gentle way to be and to live. And it's hard to stay even in that because the world wants to constantly pull you into this conflict, into this turmoil, into this competition. And this is part of the practice when
mm,
you're learning to coach, is to sort of always, oh, yeah, get that gentle correction. Let me get to a more palatable mindset, a more healthy mindset, better
mhm,
boundary. So that way I can be, as healthy as I can. I can always take care of myself. For
yeah,
us, the center of our model is the self care. That's where we start. You got
mhm,
to start there. And you
yeah,
got to have good boundaries. And that means not drawing into or getting into all this drama all the time. We're all about the drama. It's very exciting, but
yeah,
but it's a short road to nowhere.
yeah,
Exactly.
it's so true.
Yeah.
And also I love with coaching too, there's a lot of encouragement about sharing, and like you said, we all have many coaches or different mentors, and I've never been with a coach who's, "You just need to coach with me only and stay," like, "You're
Yeah.
my mentee," or something, like,
Right, right,
really,
right, yeah.
like, possessive or controlling. They're like, "No, go, like, get support, like, work with people, find out more,"
Yeah.
like, it's all very so encouraging, and that was something really different from the yoga lineage that I was a part of, which was all very
Sure.
much, "If you go to other teachers, you can't be my student," and very,
Oh, that's hard. That's hard.
yeah,
Yep.
intense.
Very hard. Yeah. Because I mean, it's hard. It's to put that pressure that you're all things to your people, to your students. Like that's really challenging. I know that I think a team approach works best. Like you've got to put
Mhm.
together a team of mentors. If for your professional life, for your health, for your wellness, you need a team.
Yeah.
You need to know who's going to help me with this, who's better at that. Even with my medical practitioners, I mean, I see one chiropractor for my hands, one for my back, because and they don't compete because they one does hands and one does the back, and that's the way it is. And then acupuncture in between. You know what I mean? So you got to put it all
Exactly.
together.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
I like the team support. I think it's good because also as a teacher, I don't want to be all things to my students. As a
Yeah.
coach, I also
Exactly.
don't want to be all things to them.
Exactly, exactly.
Right?
It's really
Yeah.
helping, like, be a concierge. You gotta help them, put together the whole team for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of I didn't know that about yoga, and now I'm learning something new today, but I'm glad you're seeing it and you're being a revolutionary in this.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm changing the yoga industry and
Yes, you are. Be a rebel. Go for it. I love that because it has to be called out.
yeah.
If it's not working, maybe there will be those who like will hear what you're saying, and it'll be a better experience all around for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we can because yoga's about freedom and it's about liberation and it's about finding yourself and listening to that higher self and aligning with it and merging with it and all of these beautiful, beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes the politics or the drama get in the way of actually embodying and living the yoga. And for me, it really was coaching that brought in this perspective that I was like, "Oh, this is the essence actually of the yoga practice, is this
Right.
self-inquiry, is this learning, is this curiosity, is this inquiry, is going into these deeper, darker places and looking at these patterns and unprogramming, you know, my
Unprogramming. That's
yeah,
exactly right. There's a lot of deprogramming, unprogramming, I say unlearning of
unlearning.
things that we thought were helpful, but they're just really not that helpful.
Yeah. I think at the beginning, maybe yoga did that to, unlearn things that you learn in society and you get really into it. But then, I mean, and maybe this is just the way of life, but, but then you get so into something that it itself becomes sort of a stuck
Right?
place. And then you have to
Yeah.
unlearn that thing in order to get to your next level.
Yeah, somebody just was telling me this line about, over time you get more and more familiar with that comfort zone, even
Mhm.
though there's dysfunction there. You just get used to it. And then it becomes like the norm. And you got to shake things up once in a while.
Yeah.
So that's what I hear you saying. It's
Yeah.
so important to do. That's what coaching does. So you're
Yeah.
convincing me more and more that coaches and coaching training would work really well for yoga practitioners, and a lot of coaches do marry coaching and yoga already.
Mhm.
And, I just think that's a very powerful union. So
Yeah. Yeah.
even if they don't spend a lot of time, if they don't have coaching sessions, you can still be much more coach like, I
Mhm.
think, probably in your teaching and in your approach, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely necessary to support people. If you're in an industry, probably fitness trainers too, or,
Hmm.
Pilates trainers, or if you're in any kind of industry or profession where you're, supporting people in, like,
Right.
their physical, mental health,
Right. Hmm.
spiritual
Yeah.
health, I think you need coach training. So,
Listen, I always tell people, even if you don't become a coach,
yeah.
seriously, coach training will absolutely change the way you communicate with people. It's just the highest level of communication. It's tremendous skills that you could use no matter what you do. You take them with you wherever you go in life.
Mhm.
However, you have any kind of conversation, personal, business, whatever, it's going to support you. There's
Yeah.
no question in my mind.
Amazing. Sign me up for another training. Speaking of which, how could somebody find out about quantum coaching and your certification program?
Oh, thanks for asking. So they can just go to quantumcoachingmethod.com. And on my website, they will see our quantum coaching essentials training, which is our main training. But also, we have lots of other great stuff available for people. Even a quick starter would just be quantum coaching questions, which is my little book of a bunch of questions, because those are great questions that I tell coaches as you read them. You got to be willing to answer those questions before you ask them, but it could come up for somebody who is just wanting to get a little bit more of a coach like mindset
Yeah.
and start answering some of those questions. And so just get on our list because we have all sorts of wonderful programs. Some are free, some are low fee, just things to experience coaching. And and if they want to talk to me, I'm very accessible. As you know, you can email me. You want to have a conversation about your vision for coaching, I offer anyone really a visioning session to get started that
Mhm.
doesn't cost them anything, to talk about the vision for their life or their work, how they might integrate coaching if they're interested and serious about coaching. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of coaching programs out there. We just do it a little differently, I find. Like you said, we're more of a mentorship program. We
Mhm.
keep it small. I've taught at a lot of different schools, big schools, and I like this smaller approach where we get to know you. You have access to me, to the other instructors, although, and I'm the primary instructor, but still, It's a family. And then when you're done, we don't just drop you like a hot potato. You're in. You're like in the family. We have alumni calls. We have so many different events and challenges and different ways for people to engage. That's fun. Keep it
Mhm.
light. But also, that you have a community that you're a part of. I think, whether you choose our school or another school, if you're serious about this, you want to find out, like, what are the graduates doing? You want to find out, how do you support your graduates? You want to find out, how they have, continuing education and that sort of thing. And do you have access to instructors or mentors? I had a coach that came to me and she had signed up for another school. And as soon as she finished, she came and enrolled for hours.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, how was it?" She says, "Well, when I graduated, I don't think anybody even knew I was there." I said, "Well, I guarantee you, on our graduation day, you'll be crying because you'll be sad it's over." And she was. But it's never really over because, not only do we do that, then we prep you for the national board exam, which is the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches, or if you prefer to be ICF, which is the International Coach Federation certified, we prep you for that. So we put you on a pathway of professionalism. And, that is with a foundation of some solid coaching, building your coaching skills. So you're really confident. I know everybody who graduates says, if a client sat in front of me today, I know exactly where to go, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel confident that I would know what to do, you know.
Mhm.
And that's not true of all programs. So you have to know yourself. How do you learn? Are you an auditory learner? Do you do well in small groups? You're experiential learner. We focus on those kinds of learning. We're not heavy with tests and things like that. We have our what we have to do, but we also know that proof of your being a good coach has nothing to do with just regurgitating something on a piece of paper. You got to coach well. You got to be heard. Somebody's got to give you feedback. And that's how you build those skills and you build your confidence.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was definitely the most hands-on coach certification program that I've taken, and I've taken 3 now.
You've taken a few. I know.
And also, I just really, really appreciate, like you're saying, the continued support. It's so amazing being in your world of quantum coaching and in your community of coaches and getting to know them and seeing like different faces and people and them and then you see them somewhere else too. And you're
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
"Hi."
Yeah.
It's so supportive and just has really enriched my life. So I also am just so happy you're here and to share the
Oh
program
my
with
gosh. I am
anyone who's
so
curious.
privileged. Thank you so much. I've so appreciated our conversation and I loved spending the time with you, having this conversation and it is a coaching conversation and a conversation about coaching, but
Yeah.
nonetheless very, very powerful and heart-centered. And I just appreciate the opportunity to meet all your amazing raving fans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Future coaches listening.
absolutely.
Wait, before you go, I want to share something really special with you. If you've been feeling called to uplevel both your energy and your income, if you're a yoga teacher, healer, coach, or light worker who's ready to create a thriving, sustainable business, all while deepening your spiritual practice, this invitation is for you. I'm opening up a high touch business coaching community called the Lightworker Mastermind. It's focused on integrating all parts of you, mind, body, and spirit, to help you align your energy and create a sustainable, soul centered business that allows you to both deeply serve while living abundantly. You'll receive personalized guidance, grounded business strategies, and sacred support to help you break through the energetic blocks and step into your highest potential. Plus, you'll join an intimate community of visionary leaders who share your passion and understand the unique challenges of building a spiritual practice and business. Annual members will receive an exclusive one on one strategy session with me to accelerate your transformation and give you your unique path forward. Trust your intuition. If you're resonating with this invitation, it might be exactly the aligned support you've been seeking. Apply today. You can find all the information at harmonyslater.com/lightworker mastermind. And until we meet again, live light, travel light, be the light. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.